UFC Fight Night Vegas 58, Dos Anjos versus Fiziev takes place this weekend, and I'm going to go through the entire card, starting with the early prelims, ending with the main event, giving my prediction and breakdown for every single fight on the card, starting with the early prelim opener of Ronnie Lawrence versus Saiyokub Kakhramanov. I'm going to be going with Saiyokub here over Ronnie Lawrence. Both of these guys are very, very good bantamweight prospects. I have no idea why they're on the early prelim opener. I actually have no idea whatsoever. I guess they're trying to get hardcore fans to tune into the earlier part of this card, because if you're truly a fan of MMA, you're tuning into this bout. It's a big one in the bantamweight division. Two very good prospects. It should be on the main card, but whatever, they're putting it on the prelims. I feel as though Saiyokub's going to get this one done. I'm looking at their competition levels, and I feel like Saiyokub's fought better competition. Ronnie Lawrence has had his way in certain fights. He got hurt badly in his last fight against Manny Martinez, and I'm looking at it like this. Ronnie Lawrence had his tough fight of his career against Manny Martinez, and Saiyokub had his tough fight of his career against Umar Nurmagomedov. I've watched that fight in the build-up to this. It was actually a very competitive, close fight. He stuffed some takedowns. He showed good takedown defense. He showed good stand-up as well. He showed a good chin. He showed good pacing. I feel as though Saiyokub, at 26 years of age, is going to be making rapid improvements since then. I feel as though he is the Armand Sarukian to the Makachev that is Umar Nurmagomedov in this situation. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like Saiyokub is going to get this one done. Very, very young guy. Had a great performance against Umar. And we've seen what Umar's been doing to guys like Nate Maness, just completely dominating him over 3 rounds. Ronnie Lawrence didn't look good in his last bout. Landed some shots here and there. He has got the ability to knock people down. But Saiyokub has a very good chin. In hindsight, going into that, Manny Martinez hadn't shown the best of chins in his career. Got put away very easily by Adrian Yanez in the first round. So I'm going to be going with Saiyokub. I like his chances. He's got a longer reach. I think he's going to be able to stuff the takedowns, and that's going to leave Ronnie Lawrence with less to mix up. Normally, Ronnie Lawrence's opponents have to worry about the takedowns a little bit, so it's in the back of their mind, so he can pull off some stuff like darting in, looking low, and then throwing a shot over the top and catching him off guard. But with Saiyokub, I don't think he's going to be worried about the takedowns, and I reckon we're going to see a KO from him against Ronnie Lawrence here. Saiyokub Kakhramanov gets it done. TKO in the second round. Moving on, and he's an underdog. Take it. Moving on up the card. Kennedy Nzechuwku versus Karl Roberson. I'm going to be going with Kennedy Nzechuwku here. Way bigger, way longer. He's just got a massive reach advantage here, 9-inch reach advantage over Karl Roberson. He's way taller than Karl Roberson as well. I thought he should have won his last fight against Nikolai Negumereanu, so I'm not sure why he didn't get that decision. He very clearly won it in my opinion, but they gave it to the other guy, whatever. Kennedy Nzechuwku, his chin is worrying at times, but Roberson, doesn't really take punches too well either. He doesn't really have massive KO power. Sure, he's hurt some people in fights. I think he wobbled Glover at one point, but a lot of people seem to wobble Glover at some point in his fights. He has got decent power. I think he got Span with those elbows on the Contender Series, but he just doesn't really have good power at range, and that's where this fight is going to be taking place. Now, I do worry, because Daeun Young rocked Nzechuwku with a shot to the arm. So I have no idea how that happened. However, at evens, it's not like I'm picking an underdog of Roberson, so I'm going to have to go with Nzechuwku here. They don't even have him as an underdog or anything like that, so they've got it at even odds, I do believe. I've got to go with Nzechuwku. Way bigger, way longer. I reckon he gets this one done at range, on the feet, over 3 rounds. 29-28, Kennedy Nzechuwku. Moving on up the card. Cody Brundage versus Tresean Gore. I'm going to go with Tresean Gore over Cody Brundage. I actually believe Cody Brundage is a decent underdog here. He's not that big of an underdog in the odds, but he is an underdog, and he is very good. He did get beat by Nick Maximov over the 3 rounds, but he did good in that fight, and he obviously beat Dalcha Lungiambula by finishing him in the first round, and Dalcha was beating him up so badly in that fight before Cody Brundage got the reversal. I just feel as though Dalcha's swinging wildly, landing those shots on you, and being able to beat you up on the ground and stuff like that. I don't think he's going to be able to ragdoll Tresean Gore. Tresean Gore's very technical. He's very strong as well. He's a big guy for the division. He can work his way back up against a cage. I don't see him getting guillotined or finished by Cody Brundage, but I could see Cody Brundage getting a little bit too desperate for takedowns, starting to gas himself out a little bit as the fight goes on, and then maybe leaving himself open in the 3rd or 2nd round for a KO blow from Tresean Gore. So I'm going to side with Tresean Gore here. He didn't look good against Brian Battle, but Brian Battle beat Andre Petrosyan, who is now looking good in his own right in the middleweight division. So I feel like Brian Battle's pretty underrated, and I'm going to be going with Tresean Gore getting this one done by KO in the second round. Tresean Gore gets it done. Moving on to another fight on the card, which is Antonina Shevchenko versus Courtney Casey. Pretty even in all stats. I know Antonina Shevchenko looks about 10 years younger, but she's in reality 2 years older than Courtney Casey at 37. You never really know what's going to happen because they're terrible at fighting. They can't fight. It's just really a coin flip. So to have Courtney Casey as an underdog here, like a big underdog, nearly 2-1, I've got to side with Courtney Casey as an underdog. Like, these are the types of underdogs you take. I think it's time to start betting on some more underdogs in women's MMA because you never really know what's going to happen in there because they're terrible at fighting and no consistency in their performances whatsoever. And Antonina Shevchenko's just been beaten far too many times in her own right. It's not like she looks like anything special. I think the odds makers have just seen her surname and seen the record of Courtney Casey at 10-9 and said, oh, you know what? Courtney Casey's probably going to lose this one. Her name's Shevchenko and she has a better record, when in reality, if you look at their performances, she got beaten badly by Casey O'Neill. Had a decent scrap, but beaten quite significantly on the ground in the grappling. Beaten by Andrea Lee, who now hasn't gone on to do anything too great. She just lost a couple of fights in a row. Beaten by Katlyn Chookagian very, very easily, and Katlyn Chookagian was able to out-grapple her as well, and she's not really even a grappler. She got a win over Ariane Lipski, but Lipski's just hot, so I'm going to be going with Courtney Casey here. I'll trust her to get this one done. She puts out good volume. She's got decent enough grappling. I reckon she'll get this one done, just barely on the numbers, maybe mixing in some takedowns here and there. Antonina Shevchenko is nowhere near as good as her sister, so I'm going to side with Courtney Casey as an underdog. Why not pick the underdog in these absolute coin flips of fights? Moving on. Up the card, Aiemann Zahabi versus Ricky Turcios. I'm going to be going with Ricky Turcios here. I know he just got a KO in his last fight, Aiemann, but he's not really a KO guy. He KO'd Draco Rodriguez. Draco Rodriguez had an extremely padded record coming into the UFC and hasn't delivered so far. I think he's lost all of his UFC fights so far in the promotion. So whenever we see Aiemann Zahabi go to a decision, it seems to be a very different looking performance than his last one where he got a KO. Like, he does seem to have those fights where it's like, okay, he didn't really look too great in this one. I believe he took a guy named Vince Morales to a decision and lost that one. He got spinning elbow KO'd by Ricardo Ramos. He took Vieira to a decision. Reginaldo Vieira didn't look great there either. Like, it's just like little bit hit and miss in his performances, and if it goes to a decision, which I think is very likely because of the chin of Ricky Turcios, the Tony Ferguson of the bantamweight division, I reckon he'll start pouring on the pace in those later rounds and maybe get a 29-28 war of a decision against Aiemann Zahabi. 29-28 Ricky Turcios, plus he's 29, he took some time off to develop his game, and Aiemann Zahabi's 34. Ricky Turcios has got a 2.5-inch reach advantage. It's going to be a stand-up fight. I reckon we see Ricky Turcios get this one done 29-28 as the fight goes on. Moving on. Up the card, Cynthia Calvillo versus Nina Nunes. I'm going to go with Cynthia Calvillo here. I don't think Nina Nunes is even a pro fighter anymore, to be honest with you guys. Like she's just sort of taken her time as being Nunes's sort of like stress reliever at home, I guess. Like a little bit of a housewife of the Nunes family. And I just feel like she doesn't really take the career seriously anymore. She's taking a jump up to flyweight, likely because she doesn't really want to cut weight anymore. She just wants to show up and fight without having to do a massive weight cut. I feel like Cynthia Calvillo, still like new to her career. She's not really a veteran yet. She's had a lot of fights, but she's not really a veteran of the game. Still 9-4, still trying to make a name for herself, still trying to make money for herself. Nina Nunes, Amanda Nunes has got the millions. She doesn't really need to do this as a living. You know what I mean? She's just showing up. She's got a good show money contract. I reckon she's going to get beaten by Cynthia Calvillo here. On the ground, on the feet, I reckon Cynthia Calvillo gets this one done. She's still hungry to make it in her own career, and I reckon she's going to do quite well. Sure, she lost in her last fight to Andrea Lee. It was somewhat competitive, but Lee just started to pull ahead as the fight went on. Sure, she lost to Jessica Andrade as well, but it's Jessica Andrade. So I reckon she's going to get this one done and just be a bit of a hungrier fighter as the fight goes on and win it 29-28 unanimous decision based on the last 2 rounds against Nina Nunes, mixing in some takedowns here and there. I reckon she gets this one done. Moving on. Up the card to the main card, which features Jamie Pickett versus Denis Tiuliulin. I'm going to be going with Jamie Pickett here. Denis Tiuliulin has some good body kicks. That's one thing I noticed about him in his game. Really good body kicks, but he's just going to be a little bit outsized here. 10-6 for a reason. 34 years of age, 77 inches of reach. He's a shorter guy here as well. Jamie Pickett is taller, rangier, bigger by far. He's a big guy for the middleweight division, and I feel as though he can get this one done against Denis. Jamie Pickett gets it done. I know he lost to Kyle Dorcas, and it doesn't look good whatsoever, and he also lost to Jordan Wright, and that doesn't really look too good, and Denis did look quite good against Aliskerov Krizrayev, but he was just landing some good body kicks here and there, and Krizrayev was just doing good against him. I reckon Jamie Pickett's going to be able to keep it at range, do some work there, and get this one done as the fight goes on. I'm going to call like a 30-27 win for Jamie Pickett here over Denis Tiuliulin. But I reckon he's a good underdog, Denis. He's not a bad underdog, but I just don't think I can trust him with my reputation of picks to, like, this guy's going to upset the odds. But he's just fighting a bigger, rangier opponent who's still hungry in his own career, younger guy as well. And in some performances does look okay at fighting. Like Joseph Holmes looked good in his last fight. Jamie Pickett was able to get one over at him, and that was a striking fight on the feet. Showed good pacing and cardio. He's a hard worker. He's consistently okay in decision fights. And I think he's going to be hard to body kick because he's just so big and tall and rangy. I think it's going to be hard for Denis to tuck those shots in. So I'm going to be going with Jamie Pickett getting this one done at range, 30-27. Moving on. Up the card, on the main card, Michael Johnson versus Jamie Mullarkey. I got to go with Jamie Mullarkey here. I like Michael Johnson. I like that he's turning right back around, keeping momentum going. But in hindsight, going to an entertaining scrap where you lose on the feet to Jarlin Turner doesn't really look too bad considering what Jarlin just did to Brad Riddell. Like, he's a really good prospect, really big guy. I reckon if you can deal with Jarlin Turner for a round on the feet and round and a half maybe into the second before you get your gloves grabbed and knee in the face a bunch of times and knee to the body as well, I reckon he's going to be able to deal with Michael Johnson at range as well. He's very technical. He's got a solid chin. Sure, he's been finished a couple of times, but it really takes a lot to put him away. And I just don't see Michael Johnson being able to pile on that volume to get Jamie Mullarkey out of there. He's very defensively responsible when he's in the pocket, keeps his hands up high. That's something where Johnson normally capitalizes when he's in the pocket with an opponent and they leave themselves open. Jamie Mullarkey can grapple a little bit as well. He showed that. He can work the body against the cage. He can push you up against the cage. He's got a big head that he can use for that type of stuff when he gets that head position against the cage and land some body shots and start ripping you up. I reckon he's going to finish Michael Johnson in round 3, and Johnson's mainly going to gas out as the fight goes on. He'll be swinging hard with Mullarkey early. They might rock each other here and there. Round 2, Mullarkey's pushing him up against a cage, ripping the body, landing to the legs and stuff like that, and starting to land some knees to the body and stuff. And then in round 3, I think Johnson's going to have been he's going to be spent a little bit, thrown all of his power shots. Mullarkey's going to be defending them in the pocket and then start landing some big ones back. And I think he's going to finish Michael Johnson against the cage. Devontae Smith's very similar to Michael Johnson. Maybe Johnson has a better chin, so I don't see Mullarkey putting him away with one shot. I think it's going to be a cumulative damage, and I reckon that's what happens here. Round 3 finish for Jamie Mullarkey, gets it done. Moving on. Up the card, Jared Vanderaa versus Chase Sherman. Jared Vandeera's the lock. He's bigger, he's rangier. He looked alright against Arlovsky on the feet for 3 rounds, so you got to kind of give that somewhat credit. He did better against Romanov than Sherman did by far. I mean, he lasted into the second. Sure, he got beaten up, but at least he's a tougher guy with at least somewhat capable grappling defense. Got submitted in his last fight, and I predicted the scarf hold for Oleinik, but he had some decent scrambles first of all against Oleinik, so he showed that he has got some grappling ability, and Sherman has none of that grappling ability. Small guy for the division, not very strong whatsoever, not really a physical athlete at all. And neither is Vanderaa, but he's just a big lard of mass. And he cuts to make 265, and he can still push a decent pace over 3 rounds. So I think this is a no-brainer. I'm going to go with Jared Vanderaa getting on top, being a bit of a mess on top of him, and maybe getting like a TKO to like tapping to strikes from Chase Sherman in a second. Sherman can be okay at times, and again, had a close fight with Arlovsky himself, I believe, but I think Vanderaa is just a little bit better at this point in his career, so I'm going to go with Jared Vanderaa being a little bit too big and being able to resort to the grappling if things get a bit messy on the feet. I think he's always got that option. I like options. I'm going with Jared Vanderaa. Moving on up the card, Douglas Silva de Andrade versus Said Nurmagomedov. Now, this is a tough one because Douglas Silva de Andrade is not one to sleep on, and Said has lost. Like, he lost to Raoni Barcelos in their fight, Very close fight. Arguably on damage he should have won, but at the end of some of those rounds, Raoni Barcelos kept getting takedowns, and that just looks so good to the judges if there's like a really close fight on the feet. But I reckon this is going to be a great one for Saiyokub. He lands a nice spinning back kick to the body, some good front kicks to the body as well, some good kicks to the body in general. And Douglas Silva Andrade is such a little square of a man in that division. Very short, very tucked up, very short arms. I reckon Saeed's going to be able to keep him at range, be a little bit too rangy on the feet, be able to tuck away from a lot of those big shots. I reckon he's going to have Douglas Silva Andrade missing a lot early, and I reckon he's going to be throwing a lot of power shots early as well. Douglas, now becoming 37 years of age. I don't know how long I'm going to trust him to be in shape and still be uninjured going into these bouts. He's 28-4. He's only lost to great competition, but I'm going to go with Saeed Nurmagomedov getting this one done. I'll say a guillotine for Saeed again. I think I said that before in one of his fights, that he would get a guillotine. He got one over Cody Stamen or something like that. And I just think he's got really nice body work. And when people get hurt to the body, they like shell up and naturally give you their neck as they're shooting for something. So I reckon he'll hurt Douglas with a spinning back kick to the body, land some more shots, and then opt to go for his guillotine move and probably get it done there. He's a very tall guy for the division, very long arms for the division as well. So I reckon Saeed Nurmagomedov gets this one done. Finish in the first round by submission of some sort. Or the second round. Second round submission for Saeed. Moving on up the card. Calvillo versus Aiemann Petrosyan. I'm going to be going with Calvillo here. I reckon he's really good. I think he's really good, this guy. Really, really good. A big middleweight, technical. Can leave his chin open here and there, which is a bit of a worry sometimes against guys like Aiemann Petrosyan who like to follow up their combinations with head kicks and stuff like that. So maybe he's pulling away from a combo. Aiemann follows it up and then goes for a head kick at the end and it might land. And this is the kind of possibility that you could run into fighting a guy like Aiemann Petrosyan. But I feel as though Calvillo is a very good prospect, and I can't deny, listen, I know it doesn't really count as a win for him because he's now got a no contest on his record. To out-grapple Omar Gadzhiev that easily. I said it was going to happen because I know how underrated Calvillo is. But to so easily out-grapple Omar Gadzhiev, who looks good himself, 13-0, and fought good competition getting to 13-0 as well, like, he looked great in that fight. Like, I know everyone just remembers, you need him in the face illegally against a cage, and it went to a technical decision, and it was a bit controversial and stuff like that, sure. But you can't deny what you saw in that fight. This guy's got big potential in the middleweight division. To do that to a tough guy in his debut when he was the underdog, I picked him as the underdog as well. Compared to Aiemann Petrosyan, sure, his win-ish over Gregory Rodriguez in a very close fight. It looks good in hindsight because Gregory's very good himself. Aiemann can keep at range on the feet. He likes to go to the body and the legs. I just feel as though where Gregory Rodriguez will slow down in some of the grappling exchanges the way he did against Aiemann Petrosyan, Calvillo's just so slick with his transitions. And I feel like Aiemann Petrosyan just gives up his back a little bit too much. We saw that against Gregory Rodriguez. And Calvillo doesn't jump on it, go for the hooks and start fighting for the neck. He'll just sit there on the back, make you carry his weight, land some shots, dig some shots to the ribs and stuff like that. Start kneeing the body on the ground. I think he's really good, really patient. Won't lose his position if he gets into a dominant one in the grappling sequences. And I think he's good enough and rangy enough on the feet to get this one done. He's got a 4-inch reach advantage. He's way bigger than Aiemann Petrosyan. It says he's 5'8" on the UFC site on Google. They're literally claiming he's 5'8". You do a bit of research, you find out real quick that Calvillo is not 5'8" at all. Aiemann Petrosyan is not 6'2". I have no idea why they're listing this as his height. He's not 5'10" either. I'm telling you, Calvillo is 6'1" or 2" himself. He is a big guy. They had Gadzhiev at 6 foot something and him at 5'10". He was towering over Gadzhiev. He's not 5'10". He's a big guy for the division. Young guy, new to the game in terms of a young guy. He's still 29 years of age, but he's new to the game. And I reckon he's going to get this one done, just showing massive improvements and winning a decision over Aiemann Petrosyan. But there's going to be some moments where Petrosyan has him and lands some good shots and gets into a combination. But I think after that, Calvillo can always resort to the grappling. Yeah, Aiemann Petrosyan's not 6'2". He's more like about 5'11". and Calvillo's at least 6'1". So they've got the heights completely wrong. He's going to be way bigger than Aiemann Petrosyan, and I reckon he'll win this one at range. I'm going with Calvillo. Moving on, up the card, Rafael dos Anjos versus Rafael Fiziev. In a battle of the Rafaels, I've got to side with Rafael Fiziev here. I wouldn't mind an RDA pick, but I just feel as though his style is tailor-made to lose to Rafael Fiziev. I really do. I want to pick Rafael dos Anjos. I respect him as a veteran. I was leaning his way. I said if it was a 3-rounder, I'd go with Fiziev. But if it was a 5-rounder, I'd maybe lean towards RDA, taking over as the fight went on. But if you look at Rafael Fiziev's game, he has a good ability, unless you're such a savage like Bobby Green, where you're just going to stay in the pocket and roll with him and make him fight and stuff like that, which I don't think RDA is capable of doing. He's a bit more of a brute himself, so he's going to be on the outside picking and waiting for his moments. I think Fiziev can really slow down fights. He invests a lot early on to the body and the legs and stuff like that. I think we're going to see an all-time classic fight. I think RDA might come back in the 4th or 5th. Maybe have some moments there, but I just don't see Fiziev losing those first 3 rounds. And I don't see RDA finishing him, because at the end of the day, RDA fought Paul Felder on 5 days' notice, where Felder had not been training MMA. I know Felder's hard to finish anyway, but he was small, he was skinny, he was weak. He was still able to stuff the takedowns. And you got Fiziev training at a gym like Tiger Muay Thai. He's shown great takedown defense so far in his career. Sure, he slowed down a bit against Bobby Green, but I don't think he's going to be throwing that kind of velocity that he was against Bobby Green in that fight, where he's just swinging blah, 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 over and over again. Like, anyone's going to gas out at that type of pace. And I don't think that's the type of pace that he's going to be at here against RDA. And even for Moicano on short notice. Listen, I know RDA looked great in that fight, but he did start to slow a bit. And Moicano was the one on a few days' notice, a few weeks' notice, or a week's notice. He came in and was able to push the pace in the later round. I know RDA knew he'd won the fight, so he could just slow down a little bit and wait on it and sort of cruise his way to a decision. But at the same time, I just don't think I can trust in the cardio and pacing of RDA. He hasn't really proved that he can implement it in his last few fights. He had a good fight against Renato, beat him up, rocked him with a head kick. Fiziev's got a way better chin than Moicano. I think after rocking Moicano with that head kick and ending up on top and landing that big ground and pound, he dramatically changed the outcome of that fight against Moicano. And I don't think he's going to look good. He's just not as consistent, man. I don't think I can trust his consistency. 37 years of age. You know he's carrying injuries into this one at some way. Way more than Fiziev would, at least, because Fiziev's now coming into his prime. 29 years of age. He's still going to be making massive improvements. He had a great performance in his last fight against Brad Riddell. Slowed it right down. Played that technical game. Will kicked him in the 3rd round and put him away. Really impressive performance by him. Bobby Green fight was all out chaos, but he beat Renato Moicano by 1st round finish. Little bit of an earlier stoppage, but it just shows you the power difference in his hands. And I just look at the style of RDA. I think you need to be tall and rangy to give Fiziev some problems. And you need to be grappling heavy. And RDA can grapple and he can push a bit of a pace, but I just think he's too short and stocky. And he's going to get into trading hooks with Fiziev. He's not going to be jabbing and moving and jab 2 like Bobby Green, and then jab 2, jab 2, jab 2, and then just start mixing it up at range and catching Fiziev in the middle of his head movement and stuff like that. He's going to get caught up trying to throw right hand, left hand hook with Rafael Fiziev in close pocket range. That's a recipe for disaster, in my opinion. So I reckon RDA is going to get lit up early. I don't see him getting put away, but I see Fiziev lighting him up early, landing some good inside leg kicks, landing some good outside leg kicks, landing some good body kicks on RDA. They're both going to trade hooks early on. Fiziev's going to beat him to the punch and have a bit more power. He's got 1.5 inches of reach to work with as well. Just so much younger. So much, I think, stronger for the division, more explosive for the division, way faster than RDA from the tape I've been watching. I just think this is a bad fight for RDA in those first 3 rounds. And if you're losing to Fiziev, you're losing in a way that stops you from being able to push a pace later on. He's not just going to land a bunch of shots to your head. He was kind of headhunting a bit against Bobby Green. But if you look at his fights normally, even against Bobby Green in some rounds where he kept it more patient and more controlled, he was still going to the legs, going to the body. If you're losing to Fiziev, you're getting your cardio drained in the process. And I'm not going to trust RDA at 37 to push forward in the 5th and 4th to push out Fiziev. I reckon we're going to see Fiziev 4-1. RDA makes a resurgence in the 5th round, shows a great amount of toughness, gets a bunch of cool guy points for being so tough, but I think Fiziev's going to control this one as long as it lasts, at least in those first 3 rounds anyway. Thank you for watching this video. Like and subscribe. Click that button up there. Here's to another week of good predictions. I've been on a bit of a good one recently, so we'll see if we can keep it going. Best underdogs on the card. Saiyokub should not even be an underdog. Try out the women's underdog in the Courtney Casey Antonina Shevchenko fight. And also in terms of another underdog on the card, evens with Nzechuwku is really good in my opinion. And the lock of the card, I would say, is either Jamie Mullarkey or who's another lock of that card? Cynthia Calvillo or maybe Jared Vanderaa. Risky at heavyweight to say that, but Sherman's just that bad. Like and subscribe. See you later. Goodbye.